I only recently started focusing on a lot of what you do for myself, for my own health, my own cycle in the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm total convert, changed my life. I want people to hear about how it works. But I guess I should start with, what is your mission and focus area? What is the thread throughout that you've really been trying to dedicate yourself to?
Yeah, so really it's empowering women to love their bodies, but also to understand them, to understand their bodies. Because I think for so many women, and this is me included, I hadn't got a clue about my body. I had no idea what well, I knew what hormones were, but I didn't really know what they did. I didn't know what that meant for my body. I didn't know signs of when my body was out of balance or, when it was crying out for help or, all of these different things. So my mission really is not just to help women love their bodies, which is really important to me, really important as somebody who spent most of my life not loving my own body, but also to help them to understand their bodies and to understand the signs, the symptoms, the language your body uses, if you like, so you can actually know, okay, this is what my body needs of me right now. I'm going to go do this.
You touched on 2 really key things with your mission too, and I never really thought about it till you said it, even though it's a very clear thing, that connection of loving your body and understanding it, because I don't know that you can really love it, especially with all the messaging we get, if you don't understand it.
When you understand your body, and especially when you understand your hormones and how your hormones work, you are much more able to give yourself love and compassion and empathy. So, for example, I'm due on my period tomorrow, which means that my happy hormones will have plummeted. I'm feeling a bit more tired, a bit more fatigued, a bit more introverted. And yes, I'm not feeling my most sociable. I'm not feeling my most bubbly and outgoing and all of these things. But again, like I said, it allows me to give myself that compassion and that love to be like, okay, so this is why I'm feeling these things.
The body love was not always there, and this self-knowledge was not always there. Can you kind of share what that was like before and how you started shifting more into not only working on this for yourself, but also for other women?
I was your poster girl for hormone imbalances, disconnect from the body, hating my body, all of it. I mean, I had eating disorders when I was younger. I really, really didn't like my body when I was younger. I was hips and curves and breasts when nobody else did. And I got my period first. And I really hated that. I just wanted to fit in with everybody else. I just wanted to be like everybody else. And I just really didn't like looking like me. And so I really struggled with that. But then I went through a period in my 20s as well, my mid to late 20s, where I just went through trauma after trauma after trauma after trauma. It was such an intense period of about 3 years or so. My marriage broke down. I had a lot of babies at some point in that. Me and my partner now, we had 4 children, 4 and under. It was really intense. There was just so much, and it was just back to back to back to back. And at the end of it, my health, it just crumbled. It completely fell apart. And I thought I was doing okay. I thought I was, eating the right foods, exercising, but still I was really struggling. I gained all this weight that I just couldn't shift no matter what I did. My hair was thinning, my hair was falling out. I had this really angry, inflamed acne all the time, which made me so self-conscious. I try and plaster my face in makeup, but I couldn't cover it. But all of these things, and my periods were so heavy and painful. I would constantly be scared that I would just flood when I would stand up and just gush. And sometimes I would have to crawl to the bathroom so I didn't leak onto the carpet and things. But nobody could seem to tell me what was wrong. And nobody could seem to tell me what had happened because like I said, I was eating the right things, I was exercising. And then I don't know I can't consciously tell you what happened. It must have been over time, or maybe it was just this subconscious thing. But I came to realize that actually my health and my traumas had just kind of collided. Like all of these things that I'd been through had impacted my health in really, really deep ways. So, yes, it mattered that I was eating okay foods. Yes, it mattered that I was moving in a way that felt good for my body, but my body didn't feel safe. And so I trained. I trained in hormone health, I trained in health coaching, but I also trained in womb healing, and I'm currently training in somatics so that I can help women to actually release that trauma as well. Because I'm a big believer that yes, we can have hormonal imbalances, but those hormonal imbalances have a root. And that root is very often, very, very often, that our bodies aren't feeling safe.
It's incredible actually that you were able to go so long enduring so much deep trauma because some of the stuff you said, one of those things would have been enough to upset the body. But the fact that it was so cumulative and all of it, and thank you for sharing too, because some of it is very private, right? That you've gone through. And it's interesting because I know me listening, but probably anyone else who will be is you recognize some of the things that you were talking about, but you might not have thought about that it's due to the safety, the thinning hair, the heavy periods, the incredible pain, all of this, not being able to balance the stress, feeling completely I'm sure you were probably losing sleep and having a lot of these other things.
Terrible insomnia, that was another one. I literally some nights I didn't even get a minute of sleep. I would be lying awake, and because I'd be so tired, I'd be literally howling and sobbing because I was so desperate for sleep. But obviously my body, again, like you say, it didn't feel safe.
You slowly created that, and I'm kind of curious because you've done womb healing, which we have to talk a lot about that too, because I also wanna know about this. But then too, you're getting the somatics, which I think people are getting a lot more aware of now and how important that is. To know, like, how do I start to release some of the trauma in my body? How do I start to open up these emotions that have been prison here for years, decades for some people. And I'm wondering, like, what are some of the biggest things you think that really helps you find safety in your body, but that you're also exploring and finding and sharing with other women to help them? What are some maybe even some of the things we don't even think about, that just pass by that we would never consider or we would underestimate the power of?
So one of the most important things, breathing into their wombs and having that conversation with their own body. And it sounds crazy, but it's so powerful. It's so, so powerful because, our womb as women, it's the center of our power. It's the center of our sacred sexuality, our confidence, our wisdom as well. It's where we hold so much wisdom and so much ancestral knowledge as well. So it can tell us a lot of things, but fundamentally, tune into your body when you wake up in the morning and then start simply as well. Because if you're working to try and create that sense of safety in the body, you don't want to overwhelm yourself with like a list of 10, 20 things to do. You just want to start with one or two things. So a really, really good one to start with is to have breakfast. That automatically signals to your body that you are safe when you wake up. Because when we wake up, our cortisol levels should be at the highest, and we don't want to add to the stress by not eating. So have breakfast, tune into your body, have breakfast, then go outside and get some natural light on your face. Again, that can really signal to your body safety. Other really small, gentle, nourishing things you can do for yourself. Listen to birdsong. Birdsong again, that tells our bodies we're safe. Similarly, sound of running water. Lying with your legs up against the wall, that's also a really, really good and gentle one. And I'm also a fan of heel dropping as well. So just literally bouncing, rocking back and forth onto your toes, back onto your heels. And again, that's another one that helps to bring that sense of safety into your body.
I wanna touch on that because people might have heard some of these things and they acknowledge that it would help, but there's so much science behind it as well because all of these, everything you've mentioned, like even the relaxing and thinking of the womb, as women, that's where we hold the most tension, down on the pelvic floor. So it makes sense that you would relax there, or if you have birdsong, if you think of evolutionarily, right? If there are birds singing, then that's a safe environment. Your nervous system can calm down. All of these things have to do with your nervous system. How can you kind of recalibrate? And when you were saying the grounding, it made me laugh because we're living in Lisbon now and we have this balcony, but it's like one of those Romeo and Juliet ones, so you can't really do much with it. And there's no park or grass nearby. You have to walk quite a bit. So I was saying to my husband that I wanna buy some grass and I wanna stick it on the balcony be So I can walk every morning on some grass.
I'm here for that. Say it sounds woo woo, but it's rooted in science. There are so many studies to back up grounding and earthing and the impacts it can have on your thyroid health, on your nervous system, on your immunity. There are so many different benefits from it. And all you need to do is just stand for 5, 10 minutes with bare feet on the ground. It is simple and it's free. Anybody can do it. That's the beauty in it. It's just I think it's just finding one or two things that you can do to just calm your nervous system, calm your body, and then, like I said, just build from there.
I think for people listening to acknowledge that this is not just a nice to do thing. This is it's almost a preventative measure as you go out into the stressful world, because most people do the opposite of what you said in the morning, which is let me check my phone, get the triggers, my cortisol goes up, my adrenaline goes up, let me not eat, rush to get to work, and then the stress continues and you haven't done anything to counteract that probably until lunchtime if you're not eating at your desk, right? So imagine it's just an unreal how powerful we are that we can go so many decades doing this.
I know I look back and I don't know how my body didn't fall apart before it actually did. I was that girl that I never said no to anything. I never slowed down. I never rested. I never stopped. My weekends were filled with, social engagements and things like that as well. Now I'm the complete opposite. I'm really boring and I'm quite happy about that.
Listen, everyone, boring is the best. I'm also doing it too. We've talked about why it's so important to do this, but I think maybe if you can share what happens once your body feels safe. What is the difference for people? Because we've talked about all the ways in which your body's out of sync when it doesn't feel safe. But what is the after reality like when you start to prioritize that caring for it, listening to the cues, calming the nervous system?
Pretty much within about a month of me just slowing down, eating breakfast, things like that, the weight that I had never ever been able to lose, the weight that especially had gone around my stomach, it literally just melted away from me. Okay. So that again, that's a sign your body is feeling safe. My periods, they stopped being painful, they stopped being heavy. They just were easy. And I'd never had that in my life before. So it was a bit of a novelty to me. So my PMS disappeared as well, all of that breast tenderness, the bloating, and everything like that. I stopped having severe mood swings. And again, some mood changes are normal around your cycle. That's absolutely normal. But before my mood changes were uncontrollable. I would just like swing from this hot, sticky anger to then feeling guilty and terrible about myself, just at breakneck speed. It depends on your own body and your own symptoms as well, but very, very often you'll start to notice a reduction in pain, tension, all kinds of symptoms and signs of inflammation in the body. You will start to sleep better and sleep through the night as well. That's a key one as well, because so many women don't realize that if they're waking in the night, that can very often be a sign of high stress or blood sugar issues as well, which, they go hand in hand. So, all of these different things. So, when your body feels safe, periods can be pain free, your periods can be lighter, you can feel healthier. My hair started thickening out almost straight away. My skin started glowing.
Glowing right now.
Thank
I
you.
can I can confirm for anyone who's just listening.
I promise you it didn't before. I used to have to use makeup to like get any semblance of not looking like a zombie. I used to look like a zombie in the morning. So all of these different things, but fundamentally as well, you kind of feel more alive to life, I think. I was so numb for so long, so numb, and that energy and that desire and that zest for life came back as well. I started feeling excited by things again. I started feeling happy again, and I started feeling connected to my body rather than like I was just walking around in this like, this shell almost.
Yeah. Everything you've said and described is something that I've directly experienced too after focusing more on this too, on the stress. And it's just another reality, isn't it? It's so strange because the numbness that you're talking about, it's almost as if you ignore your body cues, you're essentially numbing out from your body, and then the whole way you experience the world is also impacted by that. And so when you stop doing that, when you focus on the inside, it's as you said, simultaneously you experience more of the outside, and it just reinforces so much. And it's hard to, I know we're describing what it's like with words, but it's very difficult to
It is.
convey how
It
different your reality is when you
It's
do
like
this
going
stuff.
from black and white to color, I think.
Yeah. How do you describe color to someone who's never seen it? Right? It's very hard to describe.
And again, it can look different for all of us because we all experience trauma, stress, and things like that in different ways.
A lot of times we think that it's just because we're getting older, and we've really been led to believe that your energy is going to drop so much, and your strength and your ability and your mental clarity. And anyone who's an outlier to that, we say that they're exceptional, but it's not that case, right? It's that they're focusing on the things that we're talking about here. I always feel like, yeah, I definitely feel more energy and stronger now than I did 10, 15 years ago, without question.
I turn 40 next year, and this is the healthiest I've ever felt in my whole life. I have more energy. I feel good in my body. I feel good in my skin. I feel happy and confident and all of these things which I never thought I could feel. And now I realize it's not just something you have to accept is going to happen. You don't just have to accept that you will get brain fog. You don't just have to accept you won't have energy. You don't just have to accept that you will just kind of have to fade into the background and disappear. I wish all women could know that, it doesn't have to go downhill once you hit a certain age. It doesn't have to be that way.
So much of it is kind of the buildup of what we've been talking about, right? The buildup that you've put on your nervous system, how unsafe you've made your body, the different habits that you've reinforced this behavior, that it's just catching up to you. It's not because you're getting older, it's that if you do it for long enough, you can start to reverse this with one some of the steps we've talked about that you shared. And I want to make sure to ask you too about kind of a parallel area to this, which is if we're talking about getting in touch with our body, especially as women, this area of womb healing, if you can describe a bit more of what that is, what it involves, why it's so important.
Womb healing, again, it sounds really woo-woo, but it's actually an ancient practice. So if you go trace your finger back through history, way, 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 way back when, a lot of religions, a lot of communities were earth-based, where they celebrated women's bodies, where they celebrated goddesses and things like that. And in particular, women's wombs were revered, our wombs. And I say wombs, like a lot of women don't have wombs for whatever reason. It can be your womb space as well as the energy of your womb. Okay. So whether you've had a hysterectomy or whatever, you can work with this. I just wanted to make that bit clear as well. So our wombs are the center of our power. They literally carry life source energy in our wombs. We have the ability to create, to give birth. And I don't just mean give birth to babies, but to give birth to new life in the form of projects, in the form of thoughts and ideas and all these things. Way back when, like I said, women's bodies were seen as sacred. And in particular, the womb was held as sacred. It was held as powerful. And there are many ancient communities which actually saw women's wombs as a portal to other dimensions, a portal to other worlds. It's a side of society where we did worship women's bodies, where we did see our cycles as sacred, have disappeared, have been eroded, but our wombs still hold that power. They are the center of our stories and our journeys. So if you see it like a cup, like a chalice, and it's actually shaped like a cup or a chalice, they also hold our ancestral memories, our ancestral knowledge as well. They also hold a lot of our emotions and a lot of our traumas and our pains as well. So this is spiritually, but it's also scientifically. So if you look at where women hold a lot of their traumas and a lot of their pain, it's often in their pelvic bowls, it's often in their hips and things like that. And that's to do with the muscles which mobilize and when you're stressed, when you're tense, to help get you to safety. The muscles, the psoas muscles and things like that, they mobilize to get you to safety. But when we're stressed, when we're tense, we don't kind of release that tension. So it's all held in this pelvic bowl. So when you work with your womb, you not only are able to access that power, access that wisdom and that knowing, which is deep, 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 deep inside you, but you're also able to help to release all these traumas, all these pains that can impact you. And I know women who, when they've worked with their womb, when they've felt and released what is there, their painful periods have gone, their PMS has disappeared. Again, this weight falls off them, all of these different things. Because when we hold these traumas, wherever we hold it in our bodies, again, it comes down to the fact that our bodies don't feel safe. And we are holding all of this emotional debris, if you like, deep, deep, deep inside us. A really, really simple way to just start working with your womb. And most people have heard of deep belly breathing now. So, where you're just inhaling through the nose, breathing into your belly and letting your belly grow big and expand. So, again, this is sometimes difficult for women to work with because we're taught to suck our bellies in, but just let your belly soften and expand. But just with womb breathing, instead of consciously breathing into your belly, you take it that bit further and breathe into your womb. And then you can place your hands in what's known as a yoni mudra. So, where you bring your thumbs together, your fingers in a downwards triangle, and just place it over your womb. So, just beneath your navel, and just to breathe into that space. Because, for many reasons, so many women, we have become disconnected from our wombs. We kind of see it as a source of pain, and rightly so. For many of us, we have experienced painful periods, childbirth, but also we've had sexual traumas or, other traumas that are there. So again, it's just signaling to your body that you are safe again and that you're okay. So just breathing into your womb and just seeing what happens. When I started doing womb breathing, this is before I started doing any of the more deep and intense work. I started getting this little flutter, and I can only describe it as like a build up to an orgasm. It was like this little flutter when I was breathing into that area. And other women, they can feel like a heat when they're breathing into their wombs. So just doing that and becoming conscious of what you can feel. And if you can't feel anything, that's okay as well. There's no judgment. It's just starting to connect to this sacred area and this sacred area of feminine power.
Yeah, I think that for most of our lives, I know for me for sure, it was this thing of I can't stand my period, I can't stand my cycle, I can't this is something I wish I didn't have to deal with. And I never tapped into the deeper understanding of how incredible is it that you have this cycle where you can know the different flow of your emotions and use that. How you can be so in tunes with your body that it just allows you to connect deeper,
Yeah.
and all of that is stuff that is kind of stifled, suppressed, and never taught.
I always say to women as well, it's not your fault if you feel like this feels a bit weird. It's not your fault if you feel completely disconnected from your body and your hormones. It's not your fault if you're struggling, if you're going through pain and things like that. And it's not your fault if you don't understand what's happening because we've not been taught these things.
And besides the womb breathing, is there something else too that people could maybe focus on that's self-guided that they could start with also?
I often think as well, there's we as women, we hold a lot of anger. And again, this is multi-layered, but it is so difficult for women to release anger for whatever reason. And anger, I see anger as a sacred emotion. And yet we've kind of been taught that it's actually a toxic. And for various reasons, this, I had a lot of issues with my thyroid. This is very common in women with thyroid issues where you don't speak your voice, you don't you speak your truth. And actually, our wombs are very, very related to our vocal cords, to our jaws and things. So they develop together in utero, our reproductive organs and our vocal cords. So using your voice, expressing your emotions is actually a really important part of womb healing. So very often if you have jaw tension, for example, if you grind your teeth, very often you'll be carrying that tension in your womb and in your pelvic bowl as well. So working with your voice is a really, really powerful way to help to heal your womb, to help to heal your hormones as well, your body. And if you don't feel able or safe enough for whatever reason to be able to vocalize your anger, because it does take you feeling safe, you do need to feel safe to do it. You can start by singing or humming because they have very similar effects as well. So they have those vibrations. They stimulate the vagal nerve as well. So they help to calm the body too. So just singing and humming can be powerful enough that it can, to help to heal the womb as well. And then another one you can do, again, this is another one. If you don't feel safe enough to vocalize your anger, you can still, if you just shake your body, shake those emotions out of your body. So, very much like animals do in the wild when they go through a traumatic event, they'll start shaking. And that's their body's natural way of releasing those emotions, of releasing that stress from their body. So, sometimes if I've not been able to express my anger for whatever reason, because sometimes it isn't always appropriate, again, just shake it out the body. So I stand there, I put on a song that makes me rage. I literally have a rage playlist, which I need to publish that on Spotify. I've had a few requests for a rage playlist, so I need to do that.
Step number 3. If anyone listening, you remember, I'm pretty sure everyone did this when you were a teenager. How many times did you listen to angry music and just, like, blare it? But how much did it help, right? When you had these raging emotions and you could just turn up that music and just kind of dance around and move your body and shake it out. It's all stuff we've done before, but we just became too adult to keep using it.
And another really, really good one is belly dancing as well. If it doesn't feel right to shake, to scream, or anything like that, belly dance, way to help to move your hips, to help to move that
Yeah.
pelvic ball and to get those emotions moving, that energy moving. And actually, in ancient times, belly dancing was actually used as a fertility dance. So it's actually a really powerful thing in itself. It gets that blood flowing to the pelvic bowl and all of those things as well.
A lot of the stuff we intuitively knew to do when we were younger, and then it's been socialized out of us. I used to belly dance when I was 16, 17, and I loved it. It felt like I went to classes and they had decked it out like it was this little, I don't know, corner alcove in the Middle East with different, like, things hanging from the wall. It's amazing. I haven't done it since though, actually, so I feel like 2 of the big follow-up actions from listening to this podcast, 1 is belly dance and 2 is create a rage playlist. We wanna hear back from everyone who does it. I could talk to you for a lot more hours, but I'm going to ask you one final question. Is there anything that you feel like people don't ask you that you wish they would about it?
I think to do that cycle syncing. So, for example, like I said, I'm due on my period. I am going to be running myself Epsom salt baths every day on my period because Epsom salts are rich in magnesium. So they're really, really good for your hormones anyway. They're really good if you struggle with period pain, at easing period pain and tension in the body. They're really, really, really good for you at soothing things. And also, when you're on your period, your body craves, your womb especially craves warmth. And then, for example, when I am ovulating, it'll be doing those things where, I'll go dancing with my friends or I'll book in lots of social appointments. I will go to things like belly dancing classes where I can just let that magnetic energy out, that more outwards energy. So it's just working with your body and tuning into those cyclical needs wherever you can. Just for a quick breakdown of women who are listening to this and don't know these things. So, your period is where your hormones are at their lowest point. Okay. So, this is why it's really normal to feel more tired, more depleted, more inwards when you're on your period. Okay. That's completely normal. And we are not meant to fight through it. We are not meant to push through and be all things to everybody and do all things as normal. Then you move into what's known as the follicular phase or spring. And this is where your hormones slowly, so it can take a little bit of time, but your estrogen, your testosterone levels, and everything like that, they slowly start to build again. And as they start to get higher and as they start to rise, you might start to notice you feel a bit more awakened. I always say it's like Sleeping Beauty being kissed, you coming back to life. So you might start to notice after being really depleted, your energy levels are slowly coming back. But your follicular phase is a really, really good phase to kind of plant the seeds for what you want to create and bring into this world. And then we move into ovulation, which is also your summer, which is where, your estrogen, your testosterone, things get really juicy. It peaks just before you ovulate. And this is where you might feel really sexy, you feel really magnetic. Heads turn, no matter what you do, heads will turn when you walk, when you're ovulating, because you just glow. You look spectacular. For most women, this is where they look their best. Their skin glows, it's all plumped up and dewy. So do things that support yourself in this phase, to build in a sensuality practice. And this doesn't have to just be around sex, but just building a practice into where you actually care for your body, love your body, and just connect to your body. And then, like I said, you move into your luteal phase, which is also your autumn. And again, things start to drop. Estrogen drops off, progesterone picks up, takes over the baton. And this is where we go inwards. And this is where we can be reflective, we can be a bit more irritable. Actually, we get demonized for this anger in this phase, but that anger has a lot of power in it as well. I always say that this is a phase of our wild woman. And the beauty of our luteal phase is, yes, we might be a bit more irritable. Yes, we might get a bit more angry and tense at times. But this is a phase of our cycle where our bodies know their boundaries. Our bodies know what we need and they are not willing to settle. Actually, am I irritable, or is my body just saying, I deserve better here? Is my body just saying my boundaries have been overstepped here and it's not willing to accept it? It's actually my favorite part of my cycle now. And I never thought I'd say that because I feel so powerful here. I feel so powerful because I'm not willing to, have my needs sacrificed anymore.
For anyone that's not tracking right now, this is where you start, because this is the only way you can kind of implement all of the amazing stuff that Sam is saying, is if you know and start to read those body cues of when stuff is happening. I only started doing this, I told you, 4 or 5 years ago. And it's completely changed everything for me, because you can time what you do according to your cycle. You understand yourself. I tell my husband when I'm at certain days or stages, and he knows now. Improves your life and allows you to focus on different things at different times, so you're not always just hustling in that 24/7 cycle. I love this one. The last final question for you is, if people want to learn a bit more about everything we've talked about here, and you've been amazingly generous in sharing all of it, where can people find you? How can they connect?
Email me. So you can email me, sam@thewellnessgoddess.co.uk. Or the best one is probably Instagram. So it'll be at the_hormone_goddess. I've so loved talking to you and being part of this. And I'm really, really grateful to you for inviting me on and chatting with me. So thank you.